Hello everyone and welcome back to Factory Town, where in the last episode we got our sandwich industry up and running. We even discovered a few improvements that we may carry forward into this episode. Specifically, I'm talking about the way that we've got a double stack of chutes pulling grain out of this silo. Now, if we look over here, the grain is starting to back up, so I think this whole system could do with a bit of an update to make use of that, but there's a few other things that we can do as well. So the name of the game for today's episode is going to be Improvements. Now, one of the things that I would like to do is get a dedicated pair of farms for each grain mill. And that includes the grain mill making flour, but for us to do that, we're going to need a little bit more room. Additionally, at this point, I am probably going to be in TwitchCon, or depending on the day, flying out to TwitchCon EU. So these videos for the next 3 or 4 days are going to be recorded in advance. So I thought I'd leave you with a bit of a gift to make up for the fact that I'm not going to be able to implement your advice straight off the bat. I'm going to also be playing with logic in this episode. I know a lot of people are very, very eager to see that going down. But first and foremost, let's go ahead and clear up a little bit of space for us. We're going to need room for a pair of farms to feed this particular grain mill down here. I mean, well, actually, that being said, we could possibly do without that. We could maybe have another grain farm over there. But either way, I think we're going to need to be able to feed that grain down here and into this grain mill. So I don't think it's gonna be particularly good for us to have this cart grabbing the crystals from over here. So I'm going to clear a path for it to go over here. I've already scouted out a new area that I would like for this particular harvester. Now, odds are it's going to be a long while before we need more crystals over here. And that's fine, but I'm thinking, you know what? We should probably showcase a nice long chute system from a distant resource deposit. Though, I just noticed what's going on over here? Aha, I see. Well, in that case, we can do it over here as well. Marvelous. Oh, this is perfect. Perfect, without even trying to be perfect. Ah, good times. Now, from what I understand, a harvester drill has to drop off into a silo. We can't have those dropping off their loot into a chute, which is a bit of a shame, really, when you think about it, because it rhymes and everything. Right, I'm going to want a bit of a platform over here, actually. Let me make a wee platform for my harvester drill. Let's pop something like this there. So my harvester drill can at least climb up on top of this. And we'll place... how about we adjust the terrain just a little bit down here? I should have done this ahead of time, really, but oh well, there we go. We've made that nice and indeed flat. Now, is that really what we want? Probably not. Let's raise this up a block instead. There we go. That's a little bit better. In fact, that's even better. Right, we can place a silo over here as well, because we can feed into a silo from above. So this can happily continue mining and then just deliver above. It should work out okay. We're going to then want to deliver all of our goods a little bit further away. Actually, by the looks of it, seems that we can do a couple of funky things over there. But first and foremost, let's deal with the problem that we had over here. And that is we need iron. Iron delivered directly down to our smelter. So let's see. We should be able to, I imagine, be able to build these around here. Yeah, that looks about right. Let's place nice old block there, and in fact there as well. There we go. We're going to want to bring a nice big old long chute over here. Now, I do believe, yes, we can draw these out. Oh my lord, that's going to save so much time. Oh my goodness. And because I'm finicky, we're going to make this place look really nice as well. 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we want another one there. Ah, look at this. It actually genuinely looks good. This is a game that, kind of surprisingly, given the focus of the game, you can make everything in it look nice, and I really appreciate that. enormously, in fact, though this is kind of looking incredibly spindly at this point. But that should be okay. Now, I'm going to need to bring all of this right down. So let's build one at a time. We should be able to have this come all the way down. Can I build underneath you? No, but I can do that. Ha ha ha! Take that. There we go. And oh man, now I'm going to build all the way out as well. And I think at this point, we're going to have a little bit of a support beam just going down there. Actually, how about we build the support beam over here? Because then we can do something funky. We can have a little turn right there. We could go down in this direction if I particularly wanted to, and there's a part of me that does, if I'm honest with myself. And why would I be anything but? There we go. Let's have these rotate down here. We'll just bring this down to meet the bottom down there. It'll be fine. Oops, that is not quite where I wanted it. Okay, now it's getting finicky. I can't quite twist the camera in the right direction. That is a bit of a potch, I must confess. Oops, we don't want that one. We want number 5. And switch back to number 6. There we go, and get rid of that one then. Alright, and at this stage, I would say, you know what, it'd probably be nicer to build it out all the way over here, wouldn't it? Yeah, let's be honest with ourselves, that would look a lot better, wouldn't it? Yes, yes, indeed it would. So let's get this in place. You know what, I actually quite like this little helter-skeltery little ride we've got going on over here. I think I'm going to keep it. Then we'll have it come on all the way down over on this side. In fact, we could start the decline right over here. Let's modify this terrain down a little bit, though. Make it nice and even. That being said, we're actually going to want that a little bit further along. I hadn't quite planned that out properly. My bad. We'll modify the terrain down, and then modify the terrain down there. There we go. Perfect. All right, there we are. And with that, we should be able to bring everything down to its natural conclusion right down the bottom. Let's just add in some supports there. Marvelous. Okay, let's get this show on the road, shall we? I'm actually going to do one last thing. I'm going to start this off with a double ramp, just to get a little bit of initial speed on this. Now, the reason for placing that there is that, as I believe I mentioned in the last episode, if you start out with a chute that has a bit of a ramp on it, now you're going to be able to move the objects on that chute a little bit faster than normal, but only up until they hit the first bend in the chute, because then it bleeds off all of its momentum. So we want the longest part to have the decline just before. There we go. Look at that going. Ah, that is incredibly satisfying to watch. Suddenly I'm possessed of the desire to make an enormous tower, just zigzagging its way down. Maybe later. Maybe later. So we sorted out the iron issue down there. Eventually we'll sort out a similar situation over here, but right now this silo is full and we're not using mana pipes nearly fast enough to worry about that. So what are we going to do now? Well, we can, of course, set all of this up, but first, let's go ahead and have a look at some of the logic systems. Now, there's a couple of things we can do up here. One of them we can do more or less straight away, and so I would like to. Right, I would like this to bend over there. There we go. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a little pusher system, but we want this to toggle. So what are we looking at specifically? I want to read whether the inventory of a minecart going up towards this toggle is full or not. Or rather, whether it is empty, very specifically. So I want a math block here. This is reading the inventory of the vehicle going past. You know what? It'll be a little bit more visible if I add in number blocks. Now, the thing with number blocks is that each one of these will allow us to see what number it's reading. So I placed down an inventory sensor there. By hooking that up to this number block, when this cart moves over it, it'll read whatever the inventory of the cart is, not including the cart. It doesn't care whether an item is there or not. It's just reading an inventory whenever something changes. Think of the logic in this game like an electrical signal. it isn't a constant signal, but rather you can think of it as rising edge or falling edge. That is when the signal is at its peak. So a charge, any kind of change triggers the signal, and then it flows downwards along the entire circuit. It doesn't just stop at the first block and then wait there. It'll carry on through. So this has been triggered and it's just sitting there now because nothing else is causing any kind of change. There's no trigger going on. The next trigger will be this one. Boom, there we go. And then you saw a little bit of blue there. So this signal right there is reading what we have. And we're going to just pass all of these down. I would like this signal to read if this value is ever 1. I could have equal 0, but since it started as 1, if I just change that to less than, it's a nice, easy one. So we'll see the minecart come back through one more time, and it'll update all of these numbers in sequence. First, it'll read the inventory, set that to whatever it's going to be, in this case 6. That will not be less than 1, so it'll update this to 0. That's fine. Now, what I would like from that, 0, obviously, is a boolean. You can think of anything 0 or lower, in some cases, as being negative, anything as 1 or higher being positive. I want to hook up a pusher to read that. Now, on the chance that this is, in fact, 0, I want this pusher to be turned off. That will prevent this minecart from being pushed along this route. Let's have a watch of that now. Boom, there we go. It is disabled. And just to test whether this works or not, this is going to be a bit of a waste of money, but or rather resources. Let's just set you to go. You are empty. Boom, you're being redirected. There we go. Simple logic, just to make sure that this is doing something at all times. It's now got a little bit of something, and so it's going to carry on. We can have 2 minecarts on it. Honestly, we don't need what I'm about to set up because minecarts don't cost people. No one is running it. It is fully automated. Ultimately, you want all of your movement or any kind of transport to be minecarts because they don't cost population. But there we go. That's working, and we can see as it's calculating. Now, we know that how this system works. So at this point, if we really want to, and I think I do, we could get rid of the... I'll leave it there for now, just because it does actually make things look a little bit easier. Now, the next part in our master plan, we want to set up an inventory sensor. Now, if we have a look at the inventory sensor, you may have noticed the offset. The particularly perceptive amongst you will have noticed this offset. We can say, I could have it reading that tile. So as a cart goes through there, that's when it notes it. But no, I want this one to be reading the contents of this silo. Now, because that is reading the contents of a building, every time something changes in that building, it will update the block. Now, these are not cheap things to build, but whenever a sandwich moves in there, it'll update the whole sequence. There we go. And this will always, it's not a counter. A counter would increment every time a signal was received. Regardless of what that signal was, it would count up. This is simply showing what the value of the inventory is. So it is taking the output of the inventory sensor. So in this case, I would like to have another math block. Let's go ahead and pop this math block right here. Now I would like this to read whether it is greater or equal to the complete carrying capacity of a cart. So 20 in this case. And then we'll place a number block over on the other side. Now if we put a number block here, we can have that one read. There we go. That is going to remain at 0 for a very, very long time. It's not going to change anytime soon. It is getting a little bit hard to read. I do apologize for that. Now, what I would like with that one is we want a logistics block, a blocker. Now, I want this blocker to be turned on or off based on whether this has a full cargo. So right now, it doesn't have a full cargo. So this is currently reading, the blocker is disabled. We actually want that to be enabled only when there is at least one silo, because we're going to have more in time, that has a full cargo. So currently, if this has more than 20, this will turn on. And that's when I want this to be disabled. We don't want the blocker live. For example, if we had a cart over here, we want it to wait until there's at least one inventory's worth of materials before this blocker will allow any of the carts through. Now, obviously, at the moment, that isn't going to be too helpful for us because we've got very little through product being stored in the silos. But in time, that will change. So how are we going to set this up? Well, the first thing we can do is we can set up a computation block. We can have another math block, and this one will specifically control this. Let's pop that math block here. I want at least greater than or equal to 1. One of these has to be true, so we'll disable that. I no longer want this block connecting, so turn that off, please. Have we disabled it? Oh, did I send that? Oh, my bad. Currently, we've got this block. It's not super clear what's the input, what's the output, but there is a difference. The output is the large part of the trail, and the input is the small part. So I want this passed on, and then ultimately, I want another number. Again, this is purely here just so that it's more visible to us, and then that can connect up. So currently, there's nothing that is greater than 1. Oh, actually, I can set this to, we want this to be less than 1. My bad there. There we go. So when there are 0 or less active areas, it'll make this true, and that will send a Boolean value of effectively true to the blocker will turn on. So if I had another minecart just popped in here, and I would like this one to be going backwards, there we go, it'll wait here now until such a time that there is a full inventory somewhere. Now that isn't going to happen anytime soon, as you might expect. Now, this is a little bit messy because I'm having to use so many blocks just to control things. But there's one last thing that I would actually like to show. And that is, the problem here is this number is feeding through to this. Now, you might wonder, well, if we had several different silos, would they sum all of the values? No. When this signal moves through, this is evaluating a single signal, that's a bit of a tongue twister, and then passing that information on. If I had a second silo, and that one was, for our example, it did have a full load, then that would, when the silo got to 20 or 21, it would send the positive signal, it would turn off this blocker, and then any minecarts would be free to move. But if this one happened to get a signal before an empty minecart was stationed at this blocker, ready to go, that signal would override that. It wouldn't remember that one of them had a full cargo. It would only remember what the last signal was. So we want to try and maintain this. We want to remember and only update this when something changes. So what we can do for that is we're going to use a delta. Now, the way this one works is it'll only update the number when the number changes. So in this case, this will now feed down, and because the output of this math block, which is currently false, we haven't got more than 20, because that hasn't changed since the last time it was triggered, it's not going to update this block. So that's not going to be passed along, and it's not going to change the effect of this blocker. And that is very important for what we're going to be doing soon. Now, this is obviously taking up quite a lot of room, and that isn't ideal at all. Actually, we're going to need to make a fairly big change down here. But I'm glad that I've been able to just showcase this. Now, as I mentioned, I didn't really want these numbers around, so I'm just going to update this little area. Let's pop down a math block right there, and we'll shut all of this down. I want this to be less than 1, and then hook that up, and then hook that up there, and then we can get rid of these. We know that this works. No, get rid of those, please, and thank you. There we are. So that one's feeding over. I know it's a little bit cross-wiresy today, but that should be fine. Right, next up, we are going to get rid of all of these blocks. We'll keep these ones. They're necessary. Now, what am I going to be doing down here? Well, let's go ahead and make a route that goes straight along here. There we go. Now, generally speaking, I'm not going to want anything to be fed to this area unless there is a full load for a minecart, which is roughly 20 from what I understand. So we're going to just remove all of these. This one's going to be empty. It's going to go down there and it's going to patiently wait for me. We're going to have 3 minecarts on the track, but that should be fine. Realistically, it's not going to make much of a difference, though. It does take away from the usefulness of this system, but for demonstration purposes, I think it's fine. Right, we're going to hook that up there, and we're going to hook this one up here. I want this to be the exit point, and I want this to be the entrance point. Let's get that connected. Now, the way that we're going to do this, I want a pusher to push any minecart onto this route only if this silo has sufficient items in it. And since we know that this system works, we're also going to clean this part up. So we can just get all of that sorted. We want a math block. When this is less than 1, I want it to update this block there. There we go. Right, so we want greater than 20 down here. The math block is going to be a fairly common one for us. Oops, that is not what I meant to click. We want this one greater than 20. There we are. Or greater than equal, actually. There we go. Now, in the event that this is greater than or equal to 20, I would like to activate this block here. It's true. So I want the pusher to be turned on. Fairly simple, that one. There we go. I want that one to be turned on, and this pusher will happily send any vehicles down there. What are we going there? 90 in the moment, so it's turned off. The moment this goes up to 20, there we go. It's active. Now, on the surface of things, that's all we'd need to do. But what if, for some reason, a minecart is entering this system with an inventory? I don't want it to activate this pusher in that case. Likewise, I also want this to only update once, effectively. Let's go ahead and think about this. So I want to check if there's a cart that moves through this area. I want it to check the inventory of that cart. So we can have an inventory sensor, because I don't care that it is a cart. I only care what's on the cart. So first and foremost, let's pop an inventory sensor there. We can add in a number block so that we can read what that number is saying. So 0 in this case, that's good. That's what we actually want. And we would like that to activate our pusher, or rather allow the pusher to be active in that case. Actually, given that, we want an AND. This has to be above 20 or above, and the inventory that's coming down here needs to be empty. So in this case, we're going to want, let's have a look. We do want the inventory to be less than, let's find you. We want the inventory block to be less than 1. And in that case, this is going to give a positive signal. And this block is already 20, greater than 20. So we can add in a, let's pop in here let's see, a Boolean function. We want to check whether this is an AND. So we want both signals to be true. There we go. That's connected the wrong way. Let me remove that. There we go. Right, the math block there, the math block here. This should go to correct in just a moment. There we go. And then that can affect this. There we are. That will turn this pusher on, and that should all be good. Now, the next thing we want to do is this is only going to update whenever the whenever a cart moves over this sensor. But I kind of want to turn this pusher off the moment a cart goes through this area. And then another cart can be addressed later on. That would be fine. In fact, we kind of want this inventory sensor down here instead. So let's move this whole setup around a little bit. There we go. We want the number block. Oops. We want the number block down here, just so that we can see what's going on. There we are. Then we want the math block over here. We want this to be less than 1. I hope I'm not moving too quickly that you're unable to follow what I'm doing. So we've got the inventory sensor to the number block to the math block. We could even put the AND signal in there. That wouldn't be a problem, actually. I wonder if I can move these, because they're actually kind of expensive to be placing around. Can I move it? No. Out of luck on that one, I'm afraid. Fine, we'll get rid of you then. So we want the bool function right there. We want it to be and. There we go. So we want you to feed in there, you to feed in there as well, and you to affect the pusher. Now, the final thing that we want to do, if we have an agent trigger, now an agent trigger will look at what is on the tile, not what's in the tile. It can tell you what the inventory is, but if we have a look at this, we can decide that whether as something enters this or as something exits it, does it trigger. Also the offset, so much like everything else, and also item filter. We want it to, on entry, I want it to send whatever it's got. Now, a minecart will count as a thing. So the moment that happens, the first minecart will come down here. Let's assume that it's empty. So it passes this test because it passes the number 0 here, and that number gets passed on to here. It is less than 1. So these get added together, and ideally 2 positive signals turns the pusher on. The moment that minecart, which has nothing in it, passes this agent trigger, it will detect that there is something there. Doesn't matter what's in it, or that it's empty in this case, it'll pass a positive signal, I believe just 1, to this tile. At that point, this number will be 1, no longer less than 1. So that takes off one of the positive outputs, because an AND function will only be true if both of its inputs are true. So at this point, only one of them is true. So that will disable this pusher, because that will suddenly start sending out a false signal. At that point, our minecart can go down here, collect whatever's in there. At this point, it might be less than 20 anyway, and then it'll carry on its merry way all the way over here. Now, with that in mind, I would like to update this with the delta. I would like to know whether this has any kind of value in it. Let's consider this one. We have a positive value here being fed in. I would like some sort of sum of this block. If I could have it. I wonder if we've got a value like that. Do we have? We've got a counter. Certainly, we could use that one. We could use a math block to combine the two, or no, we could have a number block, possibly a math block that just adds the number of full inventories and stops adding them at some later point, or subtracts them once they go away. That might be a bit of a tricky one. Block that counts up whenever a trigger signal is received. That's not strictly what we want. We want a delta block that only changes this signal when it actually receives something. So we could have a math block that just combines the two signals. That would be a possibility. Yes, let's actually have a look at what other functions it has. Modulo, that's actually a pretty good one. But we could just add up the signals and then pass that on to this. That is definitely a possibility. So the value here, though, would be set. We would set the value to whatever we receive, which is not strictly what we want. Okay, I'm going to have to puzzle that one through. It's probably a lot simpler than I'm making it be. But this should work for now. So let's go ahead and we're going to turn this off for now. There we are. That one's going to go through. And we're unfortunately sending all of the cards straight down there. They've all grabbed a bunch of things. Let's have a look at you. Actually, no, that was fair. So this has been turned off. These weren't active. We've just stacked up a load of bread in there. In fact, it could only take 20. That's ideal, because these are no longer going to trigger on this until they are empty. In fact, when they pass through, they should go over there. So this one is currently at 40, so 2 carts could go down here, but we're not going to allow the second cart. Now, I could make it a little bit more sensible in that it would look for an item filter of bread, and if the amount of bread there was less than 20, we could definitely do that. Let's go ahead and set that up. So we want to look if this, if the bread here is less than 20. But we want to check if there's anything in there at all. No, I think we'll leave this item filter on none, actually. Let's turn that back to none, because I can't be certain that the inventory is bread for the time being. So there we go. At this point, this no longer has 20, so it's just going to let these carts drop off whatever they've got in here, and then they'll continue on through. Now, this cart should have nothing in it. Now, it shouldn't be filtered. I don't want... The whole point of this system is that our minecarts are intelligent. They won't go unless they're needed. And it looks like these two carts are going to end up in our blocker system. There we go. Though that being said, we haven't actually set that up, so they'll just cycle around for the time being, and that's fine, honestly. But there we go. There we are. They'll just continue wandering around, looking to see if there's anything there. Okay, so that took me way longer than I intended to set up, but it's a beginning. Now, the next thing we would like to do, I would like to set up some bread, because right now the sandwiches are the fastest thing to make. Cooked chicken is probably more important to set up than bread, first and foremost, but it's going to be more convenient for me to set up bread. And the reason why cooked chicken would be more important is that we can make 3 sandwiches in the time that we would get 2 cooked chicken, whereas we can only make 2 sandwiches in the time that we make 2 bread. If we make 3 bread, then we could make an additional sandwich, so we could make 4 sandwiches at that point. So having a separate kitchen making bread is going to have a less of an effect on how many sandwiches we can make in the same amount of time. But let's go ahead and set this up, because I would like to have any overflow of bread being sent out, because right now the bottleneck seems to be the cooked chicken. So let's go ahead and set this up. We're going to want to, unfortunately, get rid of this. And in fact, because we're then not going to need because we're going to be sending bread in here, we're going to need to use a conveyor for that one, I believe. So let's go ahead and find a kitchen. There we go. Now we can quite happily just peel off some of the fuel, send that straight into the kitchen. We will add in a splitter just for the sake of it. There we go. And I would like you making only bread. There we go. You can no longer make bread. Well, I'll let you run down the flour that you have, actually. Right, so how are we going to get this bread over there? Well, I would very much like to deliver it something like this. We're going to want archways, but over here we're probably not going to need archways. That being said, no, I suppose we could have this rise up on a pillar, but yeah, okay. That won't be a problem, thinking about it. There we go. And we could just deliver it over here to the silo. We don't strictly need to do that, and in fact I think it looks a little silly, so we're going to do it like this instead. Get rid of that one, and then we'll just connect that up like so. There we go. We are going to want a new silo. There we are, right there. And then we're going to want to create a new rail system down here. There we go, and then this can come up and across. There we are. We want to make sure that they can only take these turns at the right times. There we go. Perfect. Now, we want to mirror this system. So let's get back into the computation. Inventory center there, and one right there as well. There we go. Going to want a number block right here. We're going to want 2 math blocks. One there, one there. We're going to want a bool function right here as well. Right, so now we just need to set these up. Greater than or equal to 20, please. There we go. And this one, less than 1. There we are. And then pad all of these together. So this inventory sensor there, this one to here, that one over there. This should be offset. Oh, we don't want item filter. Offset, please. There we go. This one feeding in. This one feeding in. So this should now, the next time one of these goes through, set this to, oh, why is that currently turned to positive? This should not be getting a positive signal. Ah, it's because this one currently doesn't have any, this one isn't feeding any information in. Now we can force that. Whenever we get a signal over here, we would be able to trigger the inventory sensor checking what's there. But for the time being, I suppose that isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. But one way we can do that is we can use a logic pusher block. If we place a logic pusher, now, as I mentioned, it's like a current. It moves through each stage of the logic. Once there is a trigger, it just flows through the whole circuit. We want this agent trigger to cause this pusher block to scan this inventory block. So once something goes through here, it is going to check the inventory. And we can do that over here as well. There's the set block, which sets the value of the next block in the chain, but doesn't send the signal any further. And the pusher block triggers the next block in the chain's output without modifying it. And that's what we want. We want to just force the next block to check what's going on. So we're going to pass that one down there and then in. And at that point, once this gets triggered the first time, it's going to sense this inventory sensor and then pass all of that down. We also want this one to read there. There we go. And finally, we want our pusher to be hooked up to the whole system. Let's wait for the minecarts to all pass by and see if we can't get all of this set up nice and fast. There we go. So, first time through, it's actually disabled the whole thing. There we are. They all managed to get through there. Oh, we're actually interesting. This agent trigger should have already looked at that, but why is this not working? That's very interesting. What is this reading? That should be reading correctly. This should be reading nothing for all intents and purposes. Okay, so what have we got wrong there? That's a less than 1, correct. This number block is correct. Ah, it's because that is updating. Right, of course. So at that point, this really should have changed things, but I guess what we could do is have a delta there. So it'll only change that signal if something were to change with that. But let's pop down a number block. This is one of the nice things about the number block, is it lets you see what's going on. So I want that to peel off there and just inform me of how much is in there. Okay, so 0. That should be sending a false signal. So why, whenever this triggers, is that get... Oh, it's because it's set to OR. Ha ha ha. Right. There we go. It helped me. It helped me. It's fine. I should have noticed that difference, but it's fine. We're all sorted. There we go. So this one isn't currently setting up because we have no bread being delivered. Okay, finally, we can set the whole system up. So let's get all of these across there, a couple across there, and we want a pusher over here because I only want the leftover bread to go into this silo. Currently, we've got 4 there, and we'll start seeing sandwiches being built up once again. And any bread then can start feeding into this silo if there is leftovers. There we go. We can take bread off the recipe now. There we go. We've seen that the bread is building up nice and fast. Okay, we've got a couple of sandwiches, actually. This one is going to continue to just roam around. Having this blocker set up in the future is going to be an important one. But I think we've spent enough time here looking at the way this whole system works. At this stage, I could just get rid of one of the cards, honestly. And I think I will, to be perfectly honest. Let's get rid of you. And these can just rotate around. I will set up the blocker in the next episode, as well as updating a little bit of the farms. I hope this has been an interesting episode, though. Do let me know in the comments down below if you enjoy seeing a bit more logic-heavy episodes and setting up quote-unquote smart systems, and we may do that a little bit more in the future. But that's going to be it from me. So until next time, and as always, do take care, everyone.